So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Kira, for inviting us to be here this evening and to talk to participants and also health professionals about Tai Chi, what it is and how it can be used as part of getting active. So just as a quick introduction, my name's Helen. I've been doing Tai Chi about 10 years. I also trained as an occupational therapist and I now teach Tai Chi full-time.
Hello, I'm Phil. I've been doing Tai Chi and various martial arts for well over 37 years. Goodness knows why. No, because I love it. And I also teach at the School of Medicine, teaching medical doctors or student doctors how to be better doctors. So that's me in a nutshell. If you want to find out more, you can always ask some questions, but we're going to get moving. Helen's going to kind of give you a quick outline of what's coming next. Let's see if we can get this slide going.
In this session, we are going to cover a quick, not everybody knows what Tai Chi and the sister art Qigong are. So we're going to quickly do a bit of the theory first. What is it that we're actually talking about? And then we're going to get into the evidence. We've been joined by some health professionals this evening, and we're always trying to be evidence-based as health professionals. We do our best with the evidence to then draw out our clinical reasoning. So we'll hopefully give you a really good evidence base to work from. The interesting thing with Tai Chi and limb loss is the evidence that's out there is it's around lower limb amputation from what we can see so far. But we're also going to cover other long-term health conditions because often we're dealing with people who have more than one health condition. Yeah, so it's useful to know that the broad range of conditions that Tai Chi and Qigong are being used with. We're also going to briefly look at what the components or active ingredients of Tai Chi, so what could possibly be the mechanisms that are working in Tai Chi.
So what is Tai Chi? Well, it's originally a movement-based practice based on Chinese martial arts. And it also has elements of a wellness culture within it that goes way back over 2,000 years. That culture is called Yang Shen, which means to nourish life. It's a physically embodied philosophy. What does that mean? It means that within the physical movements that we perform, there's a philosophical undercurrent supporting those movements. So you may have heard terms like yin yang and the Tao or the way, and about change. And it's a very earth orientated practice, i.e. we work from the ground up. So there's a physical embodiment of a philosophy, which is quite interesting. It's also an ambassador for modern day China. So Tai Chi is very much the practice that defines China and how China likes to be perceived as well. So in 2018, the sports institutes at a national level created a brand new Tai Chi program called Ba Fa Wu Bu. And they took it on a world tour, a huge world tour. That just shows you how important Tai Chi is to the sense of a Chinese kind of national identity. And then perhaps interesting for us is that it's also got an evidence base that suggests that it's a very good multimodal intervention for health and well-being. And that's what we're going to explore a little bit. But just to have a little dig back into history. The picture that you can see here is a reconstruction of a silk scroll. That silk scroll was dug up in a tomb in central China, and it dates back to 168 BC, so almost 2,200 years old. What you can see are, ladies and gentlemen, just like you, engaged in various exercises and movements. And these very exercises and movements are carried through to our modern day practice of Tai Chi and Qigong. We will actually do some of these movements a little later. So for me, I find that interesting and rather nice to think that we are connecting ourselves through a physical movement to people just like ourselves over 2,000 years ago, enjoying the same movements and the same principles. So I think that's interesting. They're practicing these movements with prescriptions. So in the tomb where this silk scroll was recovered, they also found pottery shards, and on the pottery shards, they had the same movements and little prescriptions. Do this movement if you've got an inflamed liver. Do this movement if you've got sciatica or lumbago. And that's interesting. Again, they've already begun to start to associate certain movements with certain health conditions. They are also giving general public health messages that we are also familiar with today, i.e. we need to be more active, we need to sit less, we need to eat well, we need to sleep better, and generally just take care of ourselves. So they had all the same missives that we are often bombarded with about looking after our health and our well-being. Again, I find that interesting that, again, over 2,000 years ago, people were getting the same messages about health and well-being.
So hopefully some of you have seen this already. This is our current day messages, isn't it? Physical activities, what we should be doing and how it improves the health of adults and older adults. So this recent recommendations that came out in 2019, they put a lot more emphasis on strength and balance and flexibility. And so they've given it a lot greater prominence basically in the guidelines. So previously it was just about mainly around aerobic activity. Now they are really pushing strength building and balance. So generally over 45, it's agreed that everybody should be doing some balance activities to maintain their balance and improve their balance. Within the population with limb loss, like I say, the evidence seems to be more around what's available. The evidence with Tai Chi is around lower limb amputation, but generally around physical activity. They've borrowed from the research that's been done on older adults because they have similar levels of falls risk. So, and they are saying we should look at how falls risk is managed, and we should be borrowing as best we can from those what we found in the evidence. And what the evidence says is that Tai Chi is a fantastic form of balance training. So the Cochrane review, the health professionals may be well aware of the Cochrane review, and that's one of the highest levels of evidence, and Tai Chi comes out as a really high quality level of evidence. So that's something that is important to know as health professionals, that Tai Chi is an evidence-based form of activity. So, so there is no difference for physical activity for adults living with a disability. The American College of Sports Medicine says the same. People with amputations are encouraged to do the same. They should be doing cardiovascular. They should be doing neuromotor ability. So that is, again, your balance, your proprioception and coordination. These things are fantastic if you're living with limb loss, lower limb loss. And strength training. There is a strength element to Tai Chi that you can really work on if you wish. But yes, strength training, really, really important. It's something we're passionate about as well. So again, just to emphasize why we should be doing this for people with lower limb amputation. Again, the majority of people we see are living with a lower limb amputation. And it's because regaining balance is fundamental as functional training for people with lower limb loss. And as we get older, because our balance gets more challenged, we should really be integrating it into our regular weekly activities. Yeah. And for those younger people, the reason people don't take part in activities is because recreational sports, I should say, is they feel that they've lost the ability to run or jump, or they've lost decreased movement and endurance and fatigue. So there is an element that we need to train ourselves up. If we've got ambitions to do other sports, we also need to do a level of training in order to be able to do that.
I was just going to say, but it's not all about sport, because not all of us want to do sport. Some of us just want to get on with our lives and do those things that are meaningful for us. But doing those things also means that we benefit from these activities. So better aerobic capacity, better strength, better balance, better agility just enables us to enjoy our lives better. It means that we can kick a ball with the kids or the grandkids in a park. It means that we can get out and go on holiday, perhaps as we would like. So it's not all about sport, it's about also a good quality of life.
And yeah, so the really interesting aspects of this is that we know that fear of falls provokes anxiety. That obviously is going to affect our mental health. So on a very day-to-day level, the more balanced we feel can actually help us physically balanced we feel. We're going to feel mentally more balanced. We're going to feel more relaxed. So I really like that combination of when we physically train ourselves to feel more balanced, it's going to help us relax in everyday life. We're not going to feel so worried. So
few people with lower limb amputations actually know what exercises to do. Again, I wonder if this is also part of the general population. We're told to do activity, we're told to increase our level of exercise, yet we're not necessarily sure what to do. So sometimes we perceive ourselves as not knowledgeable, or we're too fatigued, and particularly for us, we feel a bit slower, we're a little bit weaker, and simply joining a session becomes so much more of a challenge. We have to be much more organized as well. And that's where working with a coach or an instructor can really pay dividends in the long run as well. So I think sometimes we get told to do more activity, but we actually need a helping hand, I would suggest as well, and a means to support us, to get us over the doorstep, so to speak.
And this is obviously the fantastic role that LimbPower is playing currently in helping people do that, in helping people get more active. It's so important. As we get older, we start to lose muscle mass, and it's really important that people make sure that affected limb maintains its strength, that we don't lose strength, we keep building strength, and we don't fall prey to fragility as we get older, or sarcopenia, osteopenia, osteoporosis. All these can be mitigated if we keep physically active. So back to Tai Chi, just a quick potted history of the evidence. Tai Chi is being looked at over the past 45 years. There are an astounding number of systematic reviews and meta-analysis now on the health benefits of Tai Chi. And that's partly due to the fact that Tai Chi is such an important part of Chinese culture. They're able to study it, they put a lot of money into the funding, and they are really, really behind this being a great thing for people's health and well-being. So it's partly due to Taiwan, Hong Kong and China all doing a lot of the research, but that means we've got a great body of evidence to work for and find out what it is good and isn't good for. But generally, most physicians can say that it's going to be good for the general patients. So just to look very briefly, so this is a bubble diagram, and it's looked at all the systematic reviews and where there's been promising results. So I'm just going to read off the important bits because the writing very, very small. It's the column on the far right, and that's the highest quality, most promising evidence is for. We've got hypertension, falls, osteoarthritis, pain, depression, we've got balance and coordination, COPD, and cognitive performance. So Tai Chi is really good for the brain.
And then a little one down there, muscle strength. As we said, people are so surprised when they start doing Tai Chi and they realize, oh, this is strength building as well.
So strength building is such a massive component in being able to walk. Obviously, when you're a lower limb amputee,
Huge.
strength is a major component.
So it's not just China turning out the research or looking at Tai Chi from a research point of view. One of the leaders in this area is a Professor Peter Wayne, based at Harvard Medical School. And he's really dug into the research and is digging in an ongoing manner into the research as it appears. He's made a really nice point here that Tai Chi is a multi-component exercise, and not just at a physical level. And often that Tai Chi is described as movement in 3D. We're moving in multiple directions all at the same time, but there's also a psychological component, a social and that philosophical component as well. So it has multi-level effects that are especially important for complex chronic diseases. And we know that, again, with amputation and limb loss, we may also be living with other long-term health conditions. So Tai Chi is a way of helping people get moving. It could be a prime activity. It could also be a gateway activity. So when we did a presentation to some cardio rehab healthcare professionals about 2 months ago, what was interesting was from the research was how Tai Chi and Qigong were seen as different from your normal rehab protocols. And it's not that those rehab protocols aren't good, it's just that how they were perceived, and that sometimes people in rehab would prefer to do Tai Chi than do a rehab protocol. And it was kind of thought of, okay, if we get people started doing Tai Chi, it might act as the gateway activity to enable them to then take on board other means of either rehab activities or to progress into other activities as well. So Peter breaks down the components of Tai Chi into 8 domains. At the top, we've got this level of awareness or focused attention, or we could call it mindfulness. When we are engaged in these Tai Chi movements, and we'll be doing some very soon, we're asking you to slow down and pay focused attention to your movements. And again, we'll explain a bit more when we actually start doing those movements, but that's an important component. Next, if we work round clockwise, we've got this sense of intention and belief and expectation. Okay, there's a whole bunch of expectations. There's a whole bunch of suggestions when we look at Tai Chi. So when we show people videos of Tai Chi, we often hear them say, oh, it's controlled, it's graceful, it's elegant, it's masterful. It confers a sense of calmness and quietude and serenity, but also strength and balance and composure. Those are all important qualities that we would all love to have on a day-to-day basis. It also, as we move around to sort of 3 o'clock on the diagram, it's also dynamic and structural and requires us to integrate a series of movements that often are quite complex initially, because we may not have actually moved our arms, legs, even if we're talking about limb loss, in multiple directions all at the same time. I often use the analogy, it's a bit like flying a helicopter, and I'm sure you all know what that's like, flying your own helicopters wherever you are. Or maybe not, I'm not sure, but it is a bit like learning to drive a car at first. At first, you have so much to think about in terms of managing the controls and also managing the road. But as we practice, it begins to become second nature. And that's where the next stage comes in, active relaxation. We're actually asking you, while trying to manage all of this complexity at a time, to be actively relaxed, which is very different from slumping in your chair at the end of a day, whether you've been at work or you've been busy outdoors, active relaxation is quite different. It's a really deep concept. In fact, it's called sung, which means to let go, to relax, or to be loose and flexible. That takes us on to that bottom little bit there. I've got a little bar in the way. I'm just going to move that out of the way if I can. Oh no, there it is that there's actually quite a strong aerobic, musculoskeletal and flexibility training set of components to Tai Chi as well. Anyone saw the Michael Mosley BBC episode of Trust Me, I'm a Doctor? I think it's episode 8, series 6. You can look it up on BBC iPlayer. They compare Tai Chi to Zumba, and they do a controlled experiment over 12 weeks, a Zumba group and a Tai Chi group. To be fair, and I was somewhat skeptical as well, they're rather skeptical because they like, how can this slow moving set of exercises even compare to a vigorous Zumba workout? When it turns out that at the end of that experiment, they found out that Tai Chi was actually comparable to Zumba in terms of its cardiopulmonary benefits. So much so, and this isn't just based on that little bit of research, it's also based on some more research in the United States, that they now would consider Tai Chi or Qigong, when taught well, to actually be almost moderate to vigorous exercise, which is rather different from how we perceive it. Moving on, we've got a sense of being aware of our breath, of having a natural sense of being tuned into our breath. And again, that links nicely to the active relaxation. So we often ask participants to be paying awareness of their breath. There's also, and we know this is an incredibly important part of both rehabilitation and also for general activities, is the social interaction and the sense of cohesion that you get by forming a community of like-minded people. And then finally, we get to that point of philosophy and spirituality, a sense of ritual. That ritual could simply be knowing that I'm going to do Tai Chi once a week with Phil and Helen on Zoom, or coming to a class. That becomes important to people, that they have a routine. It could also be that people begin to get interested in the philosophy that underlies the Tai Chi practice. And suddenly they begin to find out that that's helpful as well, because it begins to help you have a perspective on our circumstances. So there's a lot going on there. And again, there's much that we could explore. And anyone who comes to our classes knows that we often end up exploring some of these components. But let's just boil down some of the embodied principles and philosophy that you would expect in at least our Tai Chi classes. And first, from the top, we've got this controlled transfer of weight from one stance to another. That raises some particular challenges for us with lower limb loss, because that isn't necessarily an easy thing to do. But we're still going to explore that in terms of what we can do. Then we're also looking for this idea of a smooth, continuous sense of movement, with a sense of moving against gentle resistance. You often hear the descriptor for Tai Chi that it's like swimming in air. I've talked about sung, this sense of meaning to be actively relaxed, to let go and be loose, but also to let go emotionally and let go of some of the stuff that we cling to. There's this sense of jing, which means to be quiet, still, and mindful. There's this sense of qian, which means to be sunk and settled down, feeling rooted in the earth. I love the image of this lady in a park in Shanghai. She literally, you can't see it on this image, she's dropped her shopping off to her right. She's practicing Tai Chi and she looks absolutely beautiful. She's grounded in her stance. she's elegant, she's poised, she's attentive. All of those qualities are embodied in that image. She's also embodying this quality pung, which literally means an awning or tent. And in the context of Tai Chi, it's about being strong, of having a structure, of extending that strength out through our limbs and in all directions. And then the final quality, and this is a quality that also relates to our sense of being in the world, is about being relaxed, poised and balanced, but it also means being relaxed mentally and physically, of having a sense of a stance and an attitude that isn't with pretense or any contrivance, is very natural. And again, I would say the lady in this image embodies that tremendously. And that is pretty much the end of that presentation. I know it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but we also wanted to give you guys the opportunity to move. So
what I'm just going to say is to those people who've just joined us recently, we are going to have an opportunity to get moving, but if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat.
Yeah.
We are going to try and get to your questions at the end. So we may just have a moment just to quickly check if we haven't got anything urgent before as we get ready to get moving.
So, little summary, we've explored what Tai Chi is, we've explored the evidence base, and then we've explored what the components make up Tai Chi that give us those benefits. There's a bit of a potted summary. Anything else, Hal?
No, shall we wait till, so we'll
okay,
go back
let's
at the
have a
end.
look.
And
so
see
what
if
I'm
we've got
going to
any
do
more
is
questions.
stop sharing this screen so that we can kind of come back together. I'm going to keep recording though, but it will still only be us. And let's just double check. So first of all, we're going to do some Tai Chi movements, but they are suitable for people who want to be seated. You do need a bit of arm space, so make sure you're not going to knock over a table lamp, a cup of coffee, or anything like that. If you are stood up, do make sure you're on a firm footing, but you haven't got a loose rug or any other sort of trip hazards around you. We're not going to be doing any big steps or anything like that, but we just need to be mindful of our space around us. And again, that's a Tai Chi quality of being very aware of what's going on. Obviously, for people with limb loss, there's the paradox of how do we teach Tai Chi when it's often talking about arms and legs and hands and feet to people with different levels of limb loss. And the simple answer is we can't speak to you personally with regard to your particular level of limb loss, be it upper limb, lower limb, combinations of limbs. So we are going to use the same kind of cues of hands and feet as we would do with any other class. For those of us with limb loss, be it upper limb or lower limb, we need to be thinking about the distal end of a residual limb, even if we're not wearing a socket. And we're also going to be actively seeking to be in our socket as well. And I know that can be difficult because not all sockets are very comfortable. So again, you guys need to use your common sense and work within the bounds of your body and your comfort levels today. So yes, we do have a few questions, but should we do some movements first?
Yeah, so I'll try and answer the questions as we go, because part of this is about showing how we can do this sat down, and you can start off practicing your balance from a seated position. We do also suggest to people that these movements can be done at a counter, at a worktop, or somewhere where you've got something steady to hold on to as well. So there's different movements, and it's about working. So we're not going to give any specific instructions, but we're going to say you always stay within your safe and comfortable range of motion. We've even got people who do this on an exercise ball. So part of your balance is learning to control when you're sat on something unstable. So you obviously you sit on something stable to start off with, you move to something unstable, obviously then you can move to standing with support, the same as you would do in rehab. So if you're not sure, obviously ask your particular healthcare professional.
So you're going to get started, Hal?
So I'm going to get rolling. So Phil's going to take one chair out of the way. So if we are seated, we do want to work on posture because that's an important part of balance. So if you are able to sit away from the back of your chair, then that's great. Obviously, just make sure that you're secure in your seat. That's a big part of being doing Tai Chi is being stable. Whether we're standing, whether we're seated, it's about being stable in our stance. We're not aiming to be very wobbly. We want to challenge our balance a little bit, so because we're practicing our balance. But the aim is to feel comfortable. So we're going to do, the first movement we're going to do is 2 hands support the sky. It's from a very old set of movements. The Badwa Jing, or the 8 strands of the brocade, is the translation. It has a lot of research on it. If we're seated, like I say, we are sat forward if possible. So I'm going to move my chair now so you can see that as a standing, we're going to have feet comfortably apart. So again, we're just getting ourselves into a comfortable stance. If you do need to have something to hold on to as well, that's absolutely fine. So we're beginning in a comfortable stance. We try and relax down the body, and this is not going to be possible for everybody, but we're trying to be relaxed. So that means we are trying to take some tension out of the body. We're trying to be have what we call shock absorbers for knees. I know for people with above knee amputation, that becomes very difficult, but we just want that sense of relaxation down the legs. We're going to have the fingers pointing towards each other. We're going to be thinking that we're growing up through the body. So if you wish, and you know about using your pelvic floor, or you know about using the core muscles, if you've done some yoga or Tai Chi, we're going to draw up. We're going to have natural, gentle breath as we do this. We're going to be drawing up through the core of the body. Our arms are a cue and our hands, and then we turn our palms over. If you feel unsteady or unbalanced at any point because your hands are above your head, bring them down. And then we just bring the hands out to the sides. We have this sense of awning or support out to the sides. So we're not just lifting them up and putting them down, we're trying to integrate the bottom and top half of the body. So we draw up, use the pelvic floor, draw up through the center, press away as we lift the palms to the sky, and then we bring the hands out to the sides. And again, we sink into the legs if we can, that sense of moving downwards. Good job, folks. And again, so nice, steady breathing, staying within our safe and comfortable range of motion. Awareness of what's around us, pressing our feet into the floor, settling down. Good job. So even after those few simple movements, you might just want to have a little shake and a move just to get back into a comfortable space. Sometimes even that can be enough to make people feel aware of the shoulder muscles. So when we're dealing with anybody who may have got cognitive impairment as well, something like a brain injury, we keep all the movements symmetrical, and that will also keep the movements symmetrical when we're doing a warm-up. Then we move on to more complex movements, something like this, which is roll the ball. So we have one hand on top of the other. We always have this sense of relaxation through the shoulders, so the elbows are down, and we're imagining that we're holding a beach ball in front of us. And then we bring the bottom hand up, so it's moving out. I think of it as like rubbing a pregnant tummy if you're a lady. And then the top hand, palm faces out, and it pushes up towards the ceiling, and the bottom hand presses down. So a couple of you may be noticing that this is a coordination exercise, and that's why it's good for our brains. Now the palms face each other and they draw in, and we have this again, this sense of settling down towards the ground, relaxing through the shoulders. And we're going to repeat that on the other side. So the bottom hand comes up, it comes around, the palm turns away, and we press up and press down. And then we turn the palms to face each other and we draw in. So draw together. So this is when we can build in a sense of working against resistance or pressing away. But it's important to have that intent in our movements. Again, there's a nice Michael Mosley episode where he says, can you think yourself stronger? So we always have the intent in our movement as well, to part the sky from the earth. This is what this movement's called. So we're pressing away, turning the hands to face each other. We draw everything back in. Last time, so nice gentle breath as we go. So we part the sky from the earth and then bring the hands to face each other, drawing back in. Good job, folks. And then just have a moment. We try and have a pause before we finish the exercise, just to relax again. Drop out the tension out of the muscles and relax down and have a little shake out. You might just want to help the muscles let go of tension. So these exercises where we hold the ball, they're very indicative of Tai Chi. We always tend to move in a circular motion. We tend never to have a direct straight line. There always is a bit of a sense of a curve in the movement. So the next movement we're going to show you is roll the ball. So again, we've got this beach ball. We've got one hand on top, one hand underneath. So if you want to give your top elbow a wiggle, just so your mind knows which one is your top elbow, because this is about a little bit of more coordination. Sorry, I've just got somebody just coming in. We are going to turn towards that top elbow. So that means my left elbow is on top, and so I turn to my left. So it's a little turn using the torso, and then I roll the hands over. So the left hand, my top hand drops off the top, and the bottom one picks up as if I'm holding the ball, I'm rolling it over, and then I come back to the other side. And then I do the same on the other side. So I'm rolling the hands down or rolling the hands up. So as you can see, this involves a level of concentration, a level of awareness of where we are. So this improves proprioception. We're crossing the midline. It involves coordination. And you may, if you're standing, feel that there's a weight shift. So we're starting to shift weight from side to side. Really important for stability and balance, the ability to shift weight from side to side under control. So feeling the weight shift. Bring the imaginary ball to one side. If you want to actually feel this and you have a medicine ball, talking specifically to health professionals here, and you have a medicine ball to hand, you may just want to try and feel the difference and feel those core muscles working, feel the weight shift and the balance. Okay, so when you're ready, we're going to come back to center. We're going to roll the ball over, head back to center, and just have a pause. Again, that moment of stillness. Just take a breath, natural breathing all the way through. We let tension go. We become aware of what's happening in the body. We allow stillness and we drop tension away. So you may want to have a little walk and a shake. So Phil's now going to come in and take you through some more movements.
Thanks, Hel. Okay. So I'm going to teach you a very indicative Tai Chi movement or exercise to get us into a Tai Chi movement called silk reeling. Okay, again, if we're sat down, as Helen suggests, try and have good posture. If you're stood up with me, again, a reasonable width stance, maybe shoulder width. Again, it's going to mean different things for different people, particularly with lower limb loss. And I'd like you to give me a wave with your right hand, suppose that I can see on screen. There you go. And that right hand is just off the right shoulder, okay? Little finger edge is going to drop down onto a table or worktop. You're going to sweep or clear that worktop and sweep the hand across to the left side. We've crossed the center line. We pick up the palm on that left side, just to the left shoulder, and then we turn the palm forward. And then I'm going to get you to clean a window and sweep that hand across to the right where we started. And then we're going to drop the hand down to the table, wipe the table, little finger edge, pick up the palm on the left side, turn the palm forward, wipe a window. And you can follow the hand with your head and eyes. You can track the fall of a hand to the table, the sweep across to the left, the pick up on the left side, the turn of the palm, and then the sweep back across the top to the right. Now then, just see if you can begin to iron out all the little pauses and hesitations. Don't worry if we fall out of sync, but see if you can just begin to smooth out the edges, so to speak. Bring your attention to your breath and maybe just take a purposeful breath. Take your mind off the hands, because all we're doing really is creating a circle. It's not strictly a circle, it's kind of a rounded rectangle, isn't it? Where we round the corners off. You may begin to notice that your torso wants to turn. You also might notice that your weight wants to shift from side to side. Let it. Let your body organize itself around this movement to make it the most efficient, most smooth, most comfortable movement that you can make it. And that, again, is going to mean different things for different people. And obviously, if we've got people with upper limb loss, we're using the distal end of the residual limb as our reference rather than the hand. Okay, we're going to do this one more. Don't worry if we're out of sync. Do one more cycle and finish with your right hand at that start position just off the right shoulder. So that's one side silk reeling. Once again, just have a little movement break. We're going to do the left side. I'm kind of hoping that your hand feels rather enlivened. So once again, take a position, seated or standing, balanced. Left hand, give us a wave, because we're extra friendly and we like waving with both hands. That's it. And that hand is just off the left shoulder. There we go. Like we did with the right hand, the little finger edge falls gently down to a tabletop or worktop, sweeps across now to the right. We pick up the palm, up on the right side, turn the palm so that we can wipe a window at shoulder height back to that left hand side. And then once again, drop the finger edge down, sweep across, and begin to get used to that idea that we're tracing four sides of a rectangle, but we're smoothing out the corners. And as you do so, again, maybe just take your attention away from the hand for a moment and just know that you are breathing. Begin to maybe pay attention to how your body wants to maybe turn the torso to help the hand on its way. And that it may also want to just shift the weight a little bit from right side to left as we track the hand, and that the head can follow the hand. Silk reeling. Good job, everyone. Come to a pause. So that's one hand each. Are you ready to do both hands all at the same time? This is where the complexity comes in. Okay. Now, you might think in your own head, well, we're going to do this, i.e. we're going to create two circles. Not quite. What we are going to do is actually have both hands traveling in the same direction, swap on one side, and then travel back and swap on the other side. So the exchange, far from it happening in the middle, like just rotating the hands, happens on either side. This gets funky, that's a technical word, for the brain, okay? Because one hand has crossed the center line to the side where the brain is going. What are you doing over there? That's very rudimentary, kind of an explanation, but that's kind of what's happening. So let's get in position first. Let's have our right hand on that right side having a wave. Let's have our left hand kind of somewhere in the middle on that tabletop, okay? Let's take both hands towards the right. And then one hand's going to drop and one hand's going to lift, if you remember. And then you're going to turn the palm of the left hand, and then both hands are going to sweep to the left. And then you're going to now swap hands on that left side. And then sweep the hands back to the right. I can see steam coming out of your ears. That's it. Good job, guys. So everything is happening on one side, and that's intriguing for the brain. There's some interesting stuff with stroke patients, and Helen mentioned head injury patients with this kind of coordination task. I had a head injury when I had my accident, and I still sometimes struggle with coordination. So just keep going from side to side. Pay attention to your breath. And if it gets all muddled up, don't worry, nothing bad's going to happen. Because it's a bit like patting your head and rubbing your tummy. Or is it rubbing your head and patting your, I don't know. You get the idea though. Silk reeling. We're now doing something rather complex, because how many times do you actually do this in life? Where you actually have both hands on one side of a body doing two different things. And I'm just chatting away and letting you get on with it, because as we get on with it, the brain starts to go, oh, I know what we're doing that. And it gets a little bit easier. Alas, I can't keep you doing that because I know time is ticking. So we're going to do one more, whichever side we're on, and then let's see if we can just bring our hands back to rest. It doesn't matter whether the top hand's on the left or the right. And then just give us a little wave with your fingers. That's it, just because we're friendly. And then bring those hands down and have a little movement back. Silk reeling. So that's how we can build up a movement from something relatively simple with one hand to two hands. And then we've got even more complexity, because then we start to think about moving our feet as well in time with that movement. So there you go. You've had a taste. I'm going to bring Helen back in. We're going to see what other questions we've got. I'm going to unspotlight us. We'll stay on gallery view for folks. Obviously, if you don't want to be on video, that's okay. But if you do, you can unmute yourselves, but just let me and Helen have a little scroll through some of these questions first in the chat. And then if we have any other questions, maybe people can shout out. Brilliant. Gaynor says, I loved that. Great demo. Thank you. So thank you for that. You can also say whether you liked it or not. So question, how can we do Tai Chi and get better balance if you can't yet balance without sticks?
So we talked a little bit about that, about using, obviously, first of all, to get good core strength by practicing our posture in a seated position, and then moving on to anything from an exercise ball, or perhaps doing some of the movements with the stepping movements, just holding onto a worktop. That's one of your favourite ones, is kitchen Tai Chi, isn't it? Put the kettle on and do your Tai Chi.
Kitchen Tai Chi is, yeah, you've got 2 minutes, switch the kettle on and do some movements, but use the worktop as a means of gaining some extra stability. I spent a long time in rehab because I was rather smashed to pieces in my accident. So it took me 2.5 years to rehab, and I spent a lot of time hanging on to stuff or people in order to get my balance back. So there's also part of that philosophy of being prepared to take the long path and make slow but steady progress. So we've got a question here that's how important is getting the breathing timing? Okay, at this point, it's not important at all. As we find, as we go along in Tai Chi or Qigong, and you begin to get familiar with the movements, first of all, and you begin to start to be more aware of your breath, you begin to find the timing begins to fit rather nicely. It comes all by itself. If we try to force the breathing to the movement, sometimes people do this in Tai Chi, they bring this in too early, and you end up with people turning blue sometimes, or really struggling, or really finding the opposite of what we want, which is sung relaxation, mentally and physically, because they're thinking so much about the breath. I've actually been in workshops over my time where people have fainted because they've tried to time their breath to a long movement sequence, and they've kind of run out of air and sadly keeled over. We don't want to do that. What we find is that over time, your breath and your movement will coordinate. When we start to look at the writings around Tai Chi, say from Chen village, where Tai Chi originates, they say exactly the same thing. Leave the breath alone. It's a highly refined autonomic system. And as we relax Sung, it begins to find its place with our movement. So that's what we would recommend, that don't too much emphasis on the breath. Be aware of your breath as a rhythm in the background, that it's there. That's part of what we want, is that you are so attuned to your bodily state. Interoception, isn't it? We've got proprioception about where our limbs, or not our limbs in our cases, for some of us, but our bodies are in time and space. But we've also got an interior sense of our state, and that's emotional, but also physical state as well. And Tai Chi is teaching us to listen to that internal state as much as it's asking us to pay attention to our external state as well. It's one of the things that I think makes Tai Chi and Qigong really interesting.
We've got some really good questions coming in. Which one do you want to do? I think we've got one on timing, and I'm not sure if that's just timing of the movements altogether. We do use, and it says, do you use counting or music? You used to use counting, didn't you? We tend to use music now.
Yeah. It's a good question. Timing and rhythm and tempo, funnily enough, it was something I was talking about in a class I was teaching this morning, is a very big part of my background in Tai Chi. It's a very big part of very traditional martial arts, is this link with music, rhythm, timing, tempo. As Helen suggested, when I learned back in the early 1980s, we counted everything out. Actually, music is really good, but it depends on what you're aiming, what your intention is for that particular movement, because different music expresses different qualities. So again, some people go, oh, Tai Chi is this. It isn't. Tai Chi is very broad. It's like a very broad, eclectic musical taste. I can go from Metallica to Eva Cassidy in my Tai Chi. Is that a good metaphor, Kira? I'm not sure. But you get the idea that it's a broad church when it comes to that. And again, be mindful if someone is saying, no, Tai Chi is this and it's only this. It isn't. When we read back to the texts around Tai Chi, but also its roots in martial arts, we recognize that it's incredibly eclectic and varied and multidisciplinary. So find music that works for you, or count out for yourself, but don't get stuck in any one particular rhythm or sensibility. Be prepared, as I say, to go from Eva Cassidy to Dolly Parton to Motorhead. And you might not like all of those, but yeah, go on, have a little explore and see how that affects things.
I really like the next question, because we didn't talk about styles of Tai Chi. So there are known as 5 main families. Don't want to get all Tai Chi nerdy on people.
I'll do them quickly. You've got Chen, which is considered the original Tai Chi style or family system from which all the other 4 others sprang, which is Yang. And then we've got 2 Wus and a Sun. There you go.
So they're the 5 5 most well-known forms of Tai Chi. The majority of research for the health professionals, the majority of research has been done on Yang because that was considered the standardized form at one point in China. So the Yang 24 got an awful lot of research on it. The shortened Yang 8 has also had a lot of research. So you'll see that in a lot of papers. And luckily now research is getting better at describing the forms that they've used. So you've got a better idea about what they're talking about. They'll actually state which movements they've taken maybe from the Yang form. So we know a lot of the evidence is around the Yang. One of the other forms that's been shown to be good for falls prevention was the Tai Chi for arthritis, which was based on Sun style. That's got a lot narrower stances. It's a lot easier for people maybe who have got mobility problems. Yang can be taught in, when it's taught traditionally, can be taught in quite wide stances. And Chen, we'd say, is for the very fit and active. It's a very vigorous style.
That's for the stormtroopers of the Tai Chi world, and maybe not necessarily where we would start.
Not
There's some interesting research, though, much more contemporary, that starts to be asked by rehab professionals, can we get away with just a few movements? And do they even have to link together in that traditional sense of a choreographed set of movements like we think of Tai Chi? And actually it appears that picking and tailoring movements for your particular program and its program goals is far more effective than just saying we're going to learn the Yang 8, as Helen mentioned. So for a healthcare professional, you might be going, right, what movements are going to accomplish the goal that I want to achieve? And actually, that's how we think about rehab, isn't it? We use specific tools to achieve specific goals. So in more contemporary research, that's what they're beginning to look at. That's something that Peter Wayne at Harvard, who we talked about, has begun to be much more interested in, and that's how he changed his programs in rehabilitation from, he was a bit of a traditionalist and he tried to kind of get people to fit, a bit like trying to get a square peg in a round hole. He tried to get people to learn a traditional form and actually wasn't very successful. Then he started to think about it from the participant or patient point of view, which is what we should do, and start to go, what movements actually will help? And all of a sudden, pieces began to fall into place. And all of a sudden it began to make sense, not only for him, but also for the patients and participants as well.
And we'd say people tend to prefer Qigong, and people may not have heard of it, but actually people get on better with it, and people can then pick their favorite Qigong movement and do that, the one that they like and can remember. So we have people that their favorite, we haven't done it tonight, their favorite movement is wild geese, and that's the one they go home and do at home. So I think it's about when you're practicing yourself, do things that you enjoy, because that means you're going to do it again.
And we're on firm footing there, because again, when we go back to say 1,000 or even 2,000 years ago, it was very eclectic and people just did their movements that they enjoyed. And if they didn't like a certain set of movements, they didn't bother with them. And again, it seemed to work nicely that way. So again, as Helen says, if someone really doesn't enjoy a certain type of Tai Chi or Qigong movement, just do a different one. Find something that they find an affinity for. And again, the principles are still in there. That's the skill of instructing, is to bring the principles through regardless of the movement. I think there's no more questions.
We've got one about practicing in a group. I think there's pros and cons to practicing in a group. Group practice can be lovely. People can really feel the atmosphere. They can feel, sometimes we can get into quite a nice calm atmosphere in the class, and that can be something that people really enjoy. Sometimes our classes can be quite funny and chatty sometimes.
Absolutely.
As well. So yeah, sometimes it's just nice being in a group, isn't it? For whatever reason. There is the other side of it, is it can be really distracting if you're really trying to learn a form and you've got somebody and you're not in sync with them and they're doing something that you think is different from you. So it can be highly distracting. Yeah. So I think it's whatever works for you. If you find practicing at home works for you on your own, great. If you find going in a group, having a regular routine to go and practice with a group, and you've got a group that you like, then it's either's good.
Yeah, we have a kind of smaller little cohort of people who like doing one-to-ones as well, and they get a lot of benefit from just having one-to-one time as well.
So the
this one, where should we direct patients if we are recommending Tai Chi for online classes and live classes? So that's Kira.
So
good question.
Obviously,
to us.
We have got our new sessions starting on the 19th of July. So they are a fantastic half-an-hour session, aren't they? In the middle of the day. So that's hopefully easy for people to fit in if they want to break up their day. It's
12:30 till 1 o'clock. But we're not the only game in town. What we would say is that you really want to make sure that the instructor is thinking about you, the participant. And as I said, not trying to fit you into a square hole. Okay.
So did they come from a health perspective?
Yeah.
Do they come from, or are they just trying to teach you everything about their lineage? So some people are very keen on their style, their lineage, and they would want to tell everything about that, rather than what's going to fit the participants coming through the door. So if you're looking, obviously,
do your due diligence. Again, you want to make sure that you have a good rapport with that instructor. Again, we have some people who just aren't keen on the fact that we come from an evidence-based, very clinical perspective, because some people want Tai Chi that's incredibly mystical and wooey, and that's not what we offer. So they quickly go elsewhere, and we'll happily signpost people when they go, do you do this? And we go, we don't really do that, but we actually know someone else who will do that.
So we try and bring all the evidence together, and obviously we will have, so we've got a lot of stuff we've done with Kira and LimbPower, and that's all on their website. So we've got a really great resource on the LimbPower website. So please do check out the lessons that are coming up. The lessons, we will have a section, an on-demand section as well. So if that time isn't good for people, we will have an on-demand section that people can access at another time on ours to sign up.
And you can always visit our website, which is discovertaichi.uk, to find out more. We've got a blog there. Or you can just drop us an email and just email us with questions, or ring us up and have a chat. We're very friendly that way, aren't we? Any other sort of points? I know, Kate, were you kind of throwing love hearts at us because you had a question, or just because you love us?
Oh, sorry, hang on. I'm just writing a comment as well. I didn't know that they were registering. I was trying to like someone's appreciation of you. So I kept hitting the love heart, but it wasn't doing anything. But yeah, I do like you. You know I like you. And, I'm just writing in the comment that I really do strongly urge, people to join the classes. I don't know how long I've been doing that now with you guys, but it's in the middle of my working day. I look forward to it. It's an oasis. Afterwards, I feel mentally clear. I feel physically realigned. And long term, I really believe that my balance and my strength has improved. And Phil, you gave me just a simple tip last week, which was, if I'm just standing, try and apply more weight to my prosthetic side. So simple. I've been doing that this week, and it's making a huge difference. So I do think that Phil and Helen can tune in, even within a class, to one's own specific kind of needs, or needs or differences, because no amputees are the same. So sorry about all the kisses. I am feeling very loving tonight, and I'm just urging everyone to join it. But I do want to go and watch the tennis quite quickly, so I'm probably going to do this and then go.
All right. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you.
And thank you. That was very generous as well to say all those nice things.
So thank you we've got a few messages saying thank you, and people having to go.
I know,
apparently tennis is on.
We've run over a little bit, haven't we? Any other questions? Anyone else like to kind of unmute themselves and get a question in? We're here while you want to be here. Was that kind of the end? Looks like it, doesn't it? So thank you, folks. Any other questions that come up, please do just get in touch. Our email is info@discovertaichi.uk. We have recorded the session, so we will get that recording link to Kira. If you'd like that link, obviously let Kira know, and yeah, please do keep in touch. We really feel that we have a community of practice in our classes, and that's really important. It's as important that we hear from Kate and other people in our classes, and that we listen to those people, because it helps us hone our practice as instructors and as teachers as well. So we really see it as a community of practice, and we're just here to lead and to guide people on their rehab journeys and their activity journeys and their quality of life journeys.